Seeing a surge in demand. Cars have been lining up for miles to collect groceries from a food bank in western Pennsylvania. That organization is seeing a 543% increase in visitors from this time a year ago. Lisa Scales is president and CEO of the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. Lisa, how you doing? Good afternoon to you. I saw a number today that blows my mind. You're saying today, hello, you gave out 50,000 pounds of food today. Did that happen?
That did. In Butler County, north of Pittsburgh, we served 1,000 families today and provided that much food. And actually, in the last 5 days, we have served 3,000 people.
What does 50,000 pounds of food look like? That's a lot.
Well, each car received 2 boxes of shelf-stable items. So canned fruits, canned vegetables, spaghetti, pasta sauce, peanut butter, those items that are essential core grocery items that families need.
You've worked with Feeding America, and you've worked during 9/11 and Katrina, so you've seen a lot of this. How do you size up today's events compared to that history?
Well, it's unprecedented, Bill. I can't say enough. As a member of Feeding America, the network of food banks, we do respond to natural disasters, and I was in New York City after 9/11 and Louisiana after Katrina, but there you're responding after the disaster has happened and it's localized to that community, and there are a huge amount of resources pouring in. Here with this crisis, we're responding as the crisis evolves and actually is growing. We continue to see a dramatic increase in the number of people calling us, coming to our front door, and in our lines for our drive-up distributions. Every week, we are serving more and more people.
Unbelievable. Lisa, do you have what you need?
Well, right now we have what we need in terms of the food supply, but breaking news, just in the past hour, I had a conversation with our COO and the folks who source the food for us, and I found out that a number of the orders that we have are being shorted, which means that we're getting less than what we ordered. Some as much as 2/3 are shorted, so we're only receiving 1/3 of the load or half of the load. And this is very troubling to me, this news I just got.
Why is that? Sorry, Lisa. Why is that happening?
Well, it's there's not the food out there. The food supply is being shorted. Retailers are able to pay more than a food bank can pay for a tractor trailer load of food. We're really concerned about our food supply.
How can we help? Their website, or what can we do, Lisa?
Yes, the best way to help right now is through monetary donations, because we do have large purchase orders outstanding with the food brokers that we're purchasing from. In fact, just for the months of March and April, we're spending $1.7 million to purchase food. Typically in 2 months, we would spend $500,000 to $600,000.
Wow, the need is so great. You said the word unprecedented. I agree with you. Lisa, good luck, okay? I want to get this website out. I've got pittsburghfoodbank.org, so that can help the folks in Western PA. Lisa, thank you. We'll keep an eye on it with you, okay? Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks so much.
You bet. From a virus-stricken cruise ship to the White House, just today, a California couple telling the president how COVID-19 changed their life. A live interview with the Goldmans on the North Lawn ahead. Next.
Do you think it brought you think it brought you together closer?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can see it, you know?
Absolutely.
It brings you together. Does that make any sense?
We were separated for 5 weeks.
And admired, I covered him earlier in my career. Mario Cuomo, the governor of New York, was dubbed Hamlet on the Hudson because he was fickle about whether he wanted to run for president in the late 80s and early 90s when he was a national figure in his own right. Andrew is displaying some of that as well. He's saying publicly he doesn't want it. It's obviously very difficult to leave being the governor of New York in the middle of a pandemic to run for president. That's another factor. But people know him say ultimately he wants to be president. And look at the numbers this way. He's 63. If he passes it up this time, when can he run next? Well, maybe after 4 years of Biden, and Biden bows out, he can challenge his vice president. That's all kind of messy. So there's a lot of pros and cons here. Again, the people close to Biden tell me it's a long shot. It's, you know, he's almost locked into this selecting a woman, but there is pressure on him from Democrats to say, look at the polling and look at Angela's stature. Back to you, Liz.
Charlie, thank you very much. Perfect timing here. We're waiting on the tape from President Trump. We just got 1 minute away. WWE, in the meantime, getting a main event win in Florida. Orlando County Mayor Jerry Demings convincing top brass that the sports entertainment company is an essential business in the Sunshine State. Vince McMahon's empire now able to air its 3 weekly television shows live rather than taping them in advance because it's essential. Live TV contracts accounting for about $470 million in annual revenue. The stock is up 2%. All right, breaking news. President Trump has just met with hospital CEOs in the cabinet room as the Dow jumps 562 points. All right, let's go to the White House and let us listen in to the tape that we have just gotten.
Welcome many of our nation's top hospital CEOs to the White House. It's an honor to have you. Friends of mine for a long time in many cases. We're glad to be joined by Vice President Pence, who's in the other room. He'll be coming in a little while. And Seema Verma, who you deal with all the time, Administrator. Jared Kushner, CEO of the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. Adam Bowler. Rear Admiral John Boloschek, and Army Colonel Pat Work. We appreciate everybody for being here. We're going to have a big discussion today having to do with costs in hospitals and obviously how it relates to the hidden enemy. I look forward to discussing our new partnership to establish the Dynamic Ventilator Reserve. As you know, hospitals throughout the country currently have more than 60,000 unused ventilators. You probably never had so many, have you? Or what do you think? Are you building up or are you going down? Are you going in the right direction?
Slowly.
Yeah, slowly, but we're building thousands of them right now. We're grateful that through this initiative, your hospitals are committing to lend unused surplus ventilators to other hospitals if they have an immediate need, and you've been doing that. We appreciate it. FEMA and HHS will support this initiative by guaranteeing that in the unlikely event a lending hospital needs, if there is a big lending need, more ventilators, we will make sure that we have them. We will make sure that you get them, and we're a great backup for you. We are building literally thousands of ventilators right now, as you know, and they're starting to come in. Other countries have also been asking us for ventilators. I don't know if you've been having that situation, but we're being asked by other countries. I just got off the phone with the president of France, and we are being asked about ventilators from everybody. When the virus struck our nation, governors raised fears that people who needed ventilators would not get the ventilators. My administration has used the Defense Production Act, and it's really had a big impact on companies wanting to get them done and get them done quickly. We're preparing ventilator capacity for any and all scenarios. Initiatives like the Dynamic Ventilator Reserve will help us to achieve that goal. We need ventilators, but now we're pretty well stocked. We really needed them. We took over a country which was, I've been saying to a lot of people, they don't like to write it, but the cupboards were bare in many ways, including ventilators. In addition, under the Defense Production Act, the United States will produce or acquire more than 32,000 ventilators by the end of May, and over, listen to this one, 150,000 ventilators by the end of the year. So we're going to have more ventilators by the end of the year we've ever even thought possible. And we'll be helping out some of the states, but we'll be helping out other countries too, which I think we have, on a humane basis, we have an obligation to do. We're getting tremendous calls from Italy and France and Spain and a lot of other countries beyond that. By the end of the week, HHS will finish distributing the first $30 billion in direct payments to more than 300,000 hospitals and healthcare providers. If you don't need it, please let me know. We won't make the check available to you. I think you people have been having a hard time, from what I'm understanding. You're having a hard time, and I understand that very well. All facilities that accept Medicare payments are receiving funding based on the amount of Medicare fee-for-service payments that you received in 2019, if that makes sense. Is that what you're looking at, right? Soon HHS will distribute additional funds from the remaining $70 billion provided in the CARES Act, a big deal to get that passed. A significant amount of this money will go to the hospitals and hotspots, while a portion of it will reimburse hospitals for the cost of treating uninsured patients and for the coronavirus. So I think that's pretty much what we've been talking about and what you're looking at. So now I think what we'll do is I'd like to maybe in front of the media, you can go around to table quickly, just introduce yourself and your association, your hospital, or whatever it is, whoever you're representing, and say a couple of words if you'd like. Please, we'll start with you, Sam.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sam Hazen, CEO of HCA Healthcare. We have 185 hospitals across the country, and we're proud to be a partner with the federal government. We think that's the only way fundamentally to solve this crisis, and we're proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, sir. Please.
I'm Mikkel Moore. I'm Chief Community Health Officer for Intermountain Healthcare. Intermountain's based in Salt Lake City, Utah, a not-for-profit integrated system. We're testing about 65% of those getting tested in our communities right now, and the surge is fairly small in our community. And we believe that this is going to be a long-term...
Much of a problem relative to other places.
Yeah, relative to other places and not yet. And we know that this is going to be a dynamic situation. And so we appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with the federal government and with our colleagues, hospitals across the country, because we think flexibility is really important to being able to meet the needs.
What tests are you using?
We're using a few different tests. We have some BioFire tests.
Some of the Abbott tests. How do you find the Abbott tests? Quick?
Yes.
Are you
fast.
finding the antibody tests? Are you using that too?
We're just exploring antibody tests right now. Want to be careful about how we deploy that, and because we don't have many people who've been exposed to the disease in our communities, it might not be time
That's
yet
great.
for antibody testing. So.
That's good. How many cases do you have, would you say, in your community?
We have about 2,400 in the state of Utah.
It's relatively very small.
Relatively small, and
you'll keep
gives
it
us
that way.
concern about what can happen if we
Right,
relax. But we are being
Yeah,
diligent.
it's a great job. You've done a great job. Thank you very much.
Mr.
Please.
President, I'm David Dill. I'm the President and CEO of LifePoint Health. We own and operate 88 hospitals spread out through 29 states in smaller communities, which I know are communities very important to you. We applaud the efforts of your administration on dispersing the $30 billion in funds quickly. Our ask is that we continue to deploy the remaining $70 billion. Rural hospitals are a very important part of the infrastructure of this country, and also treating the uninsured and the Medicaid population as well. So thank you for what you've done. We have not seen a significant surge at this point either, although our caregivers have done a fantastic job of preparing, and we are...
What area do you cover mostly, David?
All over the country, 29 different states. Think about the middle part of the country. We don't have we don't have any hospitals on the West Coast in California, also in the Northeast, but virtually every state in between are where we have
A lot of
hospitals.
places that don't have the big hotspots, right?
That's right. We only have a couple of hundred COVID patients today in our hospitals.
Wow.
Our biggest risk, I believe, are nursing homes, and so protecting our nursing homes, making sure that our nursing homes are stable.
Actually, you're very careful.
And we're very careful
That's
there.
great.
Yeah.
Great job, David.
Thank you.
very much. Chris?
Mr. President, Joe Impeachike, President and CEO of Ascension. I represent 165,000 associates in communities across the country. We have 150 hospitals in 20 states. We're proud to be part of this partnership. Appreciate your leadership, Mr. President, and I'd like to thank you and Vice President Pence for everything you're doing.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Good job you do, too.
I'm Rick Pollack. I'm president of the American Hospital Association, and thank you, Mr. President, for having us in. And want you to know that we appreciate.
The president, I guess, said that earlier.
And how that return to work will happen, which is factually incorrect according to the U.S. Constitution. He does not have that authority. The governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
This is at the right time for those that are really struggling. And this is an innovative approach that we're committed to. The hospital systems around this table have stepped up to the plate to make commitments And you have our commitment at the American Hospital Association that we will work with the rest of our field to make additional commitments and make this a success.
So Rick, we're also building a very high quality ventilator because you have to make a decision. And I was told it makes a big difference. The level of quality of a ventilator, what is it? What is the difference? Do you find it makes a big difference? They're obviously more expensive, more detailed, harder to build, but I hear they are more effective quite a bit. Do you all consider that to be correct?
That's correct.
A ventilator is not a ventilator. There are a lot of different versions of them that have different capabilities.
So we're building the one that they say is, we're trying to go at a standard that's very high. And you think that's worth it?
We think this project
Makes
is
a
very
difference.
well worth it, absolutely.
If it makes a difference, very good. Thank you, great job. Please.
Mr. President, Warner Thomas, I'm the CEO of Ochsner Health in New Orleans. We're the largest not-for-profit health system in Louisiana. We've been caring for about 60 to 65% of the COVID patients in New Orleans, over a third of them for the entire state. So we have seen an escalation over the past few weeks, although we're seeing some flattening of that curve now, and we're excited to be part of this program. I want to thank you and your administration and certainly our governor, who was helpful in getting ventilators to us when we were going through the process. Yeah.
We got that to him.
Yeah.
We sent a lot of ventilators to your state, and we've been working very well with you, Governor, and with your two senators, too.
We appreciate that. It made a huge difference for our patients, and we're excited to be part of this program so we could help other communities that may be in need of ventilators as well.
We also built you a lot of hospitals, and hospital beds in particular, and we just cut back on the final because you didn't need them, which was great. You didn't need them. So you're seeing a flattening right now, right?
We are seeing some flattening of the curve, and certainly we're hopeful that continues, over the next couple of weeks, and the shelter in place has had a major impact in our city.
Fantastic, great job. Say hello. Please.
Mr. President, my name is Fritz Francois. I serve as the Chief Medical Officer at NYU Langone Health. Kansas sends its regards. And as you know, we've been taking care of patients not only in Manhattan, but also our forwarders in Brooklyn, as well as Long Island. And we've been in the heart of it. And we do want to really thank you for not only supporting NYU, but also the New York hospitals. We've been in the hot zone. And similarly, we're actually seeing a bit of a flattening. And we're continuing and committed to taking care of these patients. So once again, thank you for all your efforts.
I spoke to Ken yesterday. We'll take care of all the situation. You people have really done a fantastic job during this crisis. Please.
Yeah, Mr. President, my name is Tom Mihailovich. I'm the president and CEO of Cleveland Clinic.
Good.
We have a strong presence, obviously, in our home state of Ohio, but also a large presence in Florida, southeast coast of
That's
Florida.
right. You built a big one, right?
Yes, we built a
That's
big
very
one.
good.
Fortunately, in Ohio, the measures by our governor were instituted very early, and we have really not had a surge in the number of patients.
Right.
And the curve has been flat for almost 2 weeks. In our entire system, we employ 60,000 caregivers. We're having only 170 patients in our entire system, and the number has been stable. And what I would also like to echo my colleagues here, that we're thankful for the invitation, but I also want to assure that we all collaborate among each other and lend a helping hand to those who are in need. So thank you very much.
Well, that's great, and you do have a great governor. Mike has done a great job.
He has done a really
And
good
we
job.
appreciate it very much. So we're going to talk for a couple of minutes, and thank you all very much, media. Thank you.
Mr. President, will you issue your new guidelines in a day or two? Let's go. President.
All right, President Trump moments ago at the White House meeting with a group of healthcare executives, including CEOs of some of the big hospitals, and doing so as the market surges higher and closes it out on the day. Remember, we'll probably see the president in about an hour again at the Daily Coronavirus Task Force briefing. So with that, welcome to the show, everybody. It's good to be with you. I'm Connell McShane.
I'm Melissa Francis. This is after the bell. The major averages closing up more than 2%. The NASDAQ officially exiting bear market territory. Fox Business team coverage now. Blake Berman, it has the latest from the White House. Lauren Simonetti is watching the markets, and Edward Lawrence is in Washington. Let's start with Lauren.
Well, what a day on Wall Street. Hey, Melissa and Connell, stocks surging on signs that the coronavirus is easing, and the president will soon announce guidelines to open the economy back up. That hope outweighed sharply lower profits by both JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo, each bank setting aside billions of dollars to prepare for a deluge of expected loan defaults. Millions of Americans out of work, right? So even though stocks overall were sharply higher, the Dow up 4 of the past 6 days, the NASDAQ higher 4 days in a row now, and it's actually the last of the 3 major averages exiting bear market territory, as you noted, Melissa. But investors still are nervous here. We saw gold gain and we saw the yield on the 10-year Treasury rise. A lot of strength today came from tech. Amazon, take a look, closing at an all-time high with the market valuation now for the first time ever topping $1.1 trillion. Walmart, also a winner, finishing in the green in record territory, the only Dow stock to do so since February. As you know, both Walmart and Amazon have taken a vital role during the pandemic, using their massive footprint, their supply infrastructure to provide for Americans. Dow components Apple and Johnson & Johnson also boosting the blue chip average today, helping outweigh significant losses that we saw by Boeing after it lost hundreds of plane orders, including for the 737 MAX. So it was a great day, stocks closing near the highs of the session. Melissa Connell, back to you.
All right, we'll take it. Thanks, Lauren. The White House is forming an advisory group to reopen the economy. Let's check in with our own Blake Berman with the latest on this. Blake.
Hi there, Melissa. A day after President Trump said that he has, quote unquote, total authority over the states as it relates to when to potentially reopen the economy, the president today seemingly took both sides of that issue, going to Twitter earlier today and calling out the Democratic governors in the Northeast that are banding together that say that they will set their own guidelines, or at least act on those own guidelines. The president specifically singling out New York's Andrew Cuomo at one point, writing the following, saying, quote, bottom of the tweet here, he says, I got it all done for him, speaking of Cuomo, and everyone else, and now he seems to want independence. That won't happen. But this afternoon, when he met with coronavirus survivors, the president also said he would work in concert with governors as it relates to reopening the economy, and said a decision is coming soon.
And I'm going to be making a decision pretty quickly, and it's being done in conjunction with governors. We have tremendous support from governors, and what I do is going to be done in conjunction with governors.
Also today, the Labor Secretary Eugene Scalia acknowledged that no matter what decisions public health officials decide to make, or public officials in general, business owners will eventually have their say as well.
Yes, obviously business leaders have a key role here. It's their companies. They need to get to the point where they and their workers are comfortable resuming, and we want to work with them on that.
As once again, we'll be back over toward the White House this upcoming hour as we will hear from President Trump and the members of the coronavirus task force, as the president will announce the advisors that he will seek guidance from as it relates to the economic side, the reopening of the economy. Connell and Melissa, there had been some talk in the recent days that maybe this would kind of be a parallel task force, an economic task force to run parallel to the health task force. However, what I've been told in speaking with White House officials throughout the day is that this isn't necessarily going to be a task force per se. The president will be seeking guidance, will be seeking advice from others. There's a few reasons why here. One of them includes the legal complexities with including non-government outside advisors and sort of bringing them into the task force. So that necessarily won't happen, but we will hear from the president who he will lean on coming up here later in the Rose Garden. And he says it will be from members all across industries. Back to you.
Americans ready to get back to work. Blake, thank you. Connell.
All right, Melissa, you heard New York mentioned there in Blake's reporting. Let's get the very latest on the ground. Fox's David Lee Miller back live with us from Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. David. Connell, the death toll here in New York State has increased yet again. In the span of just 24 hours, 778 New Yorkers lost their lives to this invisible killer. That was the second highest number of fatalities since the virus struck. But there was some good news today. The number of people admitted to hospitals is down. Now, during his daily briefing, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo again rejected President Trump's assertion that he, as president, has total authority over the reopening of the economy, calling the claim factually wrong. Cuomo, who has set up a task force of nearby states, says governors should decide when the time is right to reopen for business. Cuomo mentioned the president's tweets
likening governors to mutineers, and then responding with an olive branch of sorts.
I put my hand out in total partnership and cooperation with the president. If he wants a fight, he's not going to get it from me. Period. This is going to take us working together.
New York City, meanwhile, the epicenter of the pandemic, will increase local production of personal protection equipment. Multiple firms will soon be making more than 400,000 face masks and 100,000 surgical gowns a week. The city is also building a new supply chain to produce a weekly supply of up to 50,000 coronavirus test kits. And more than 6,000 New York City residents have now died from the coronavirus. Janet Mendez is not one of them. After spending 3 weeks in Mount Sinai Hospital, including 10 days on a ventilator, she has now returned home. Her recovery, very inspiring at a time that this city and really the rest of the country needs something special to believe in. Back to you.
Certainly do, David. We can all use a story like that. David Lee Miller, live from the streets of Manhattan. Thank you, sir. Melissa.
Here now is Bill McGurn, columnist for the Wall Street Journal. He is also a Fox News contributor. So we are coming up on this, meeting with the president and his advisory panel. What do you expect to hear from them?
Well, I think the large question we're going to hear is what's the way forward? How do we get to reopening? Even at governor's, that's the conversation. We don't have a clear path laid out, but I would assume that's what they're going to be discussing. I mean, we've got about 2 weeks left of the original order, so people are going to want to know what comes next.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line, the government is talking about all the PPP loans that they've given out, that they might run out of money as soon as this weekend. It doesn't really matter how much support the government puts out if there aren't customers there to pick up the ball. I mean, I've talked to a lot of, just in Manhattan, restaurant owners, salon owners who say, what's the point of giving me a loan to bring my employees back if there's no one to serve? Waiters and waitresses, there's no point in them doing takeout. I mean, they can't get tips. You can't open a salon and you pay your stylist, but there's no customers. So it's not helpful until there's customers. That's what we need to know, right, Bill?
Right. I mean, that's why one of the biggest priorities in how to help small business, how to help workers, how to help people that are retired is simply reopening the economy. Doesn't mean we have to do it all at once or so forth. And here I think that this clash between the federal government and the states is one, unnecessary, and two, kind of silly in a way, because I think what we need most from the federal government are not directives where they tell you everyone in America is going to wear a mask, or everyone's going to do this, or everyone's going to remain closed. I think the most helpful thing we can do from the federal government is they have a wider reach and look, they got more experts to tell us information. And I mean, for reopening, specific information. For example, who are the most vulnerable people and who are the least vulnerable? It seems to me obvious that people with the antibodies, they should be able to go to work with no problem. People who are 70 or over and have some pre-existing like heart condition or diabetes, they obviously need to be protected. But we need to start ranking things. What are the easiest ways to get COVID-19 and what are the more difficult ways? What should we be prioritizing? And I think the more information the federal government can give us from what it's learned, I think the application, how to apply those rules, that's really more for the states and localities. Governor Cuomo hinted at this the other day because he pointed out that even within New York, the same rules can't really apply everywhere.